First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai Ba'Hashem Rakakwadash. Yahweh is who this world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai is who this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Bahashim means in the name, Rakah means spirit, and Kodash means holy. And that's on the Paleo Hebrew. I also want to give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. So, today's video, I wanted to go into what this guy DJ Trump has been doing. Okay, this guy DJ Trump came into office and is really setting his foot down. Okay, he's letting these nations know that he is not playing. Okay, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, 4 or 5 days ago, Trump came up, started talking, and he whips out this, okay, image, this little board right here, out of nowhere. It says, hey, all the nations that are putting taxes on us, hey, guess what? We're going to put taxes on you too, right? So, China, a certain tariffs to us are 67%, right? The U.S. is putting a 34% tariff back, right? Essentially, every single nation, gets a tariff. And this instantly collapsed the market like 20%. Okay, a drop that hasn't been seen since I'm pretty sure 2008. Okay, 2020 when the vid happened. So this had a massive effect on the market, global economics, and the thing is that this guy Trump is only stepping it up more, right? So if you don't know what tariffs essentially do, it makes it so for the Chinese to send their products over here, now it is 34% more expensive, right? So it's not really convenient for them. So what they're going to do in order to fight that is the Chinese are just going to raise the price of whatever they're selling 34% in order to make, that difference. And who's going to end up paying that 34%? The average consumer. Okay, so, ultimately what this is going to lead to is civil unrest. Okay, and ultimately going to lead to uproars of the people. Let's get this in 2nd Ezra chapter 16. 2nd Ezra chapter 15 and verse 16. It says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Right? So if you don't know what sedition means, sedition goes into conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. Right? So pretty much people that lead all types of revolutionary groups to come against the government, insurgencies. Right? Go watch the movie Insurgents. It's a movie about a group of kids that are coming against the system, and that ideology is ultimately going to be a massive here in America because everybody's going to realize that this government is not benefiting them, and that we have to do something about this government, and we as the people have the power, right, under the U.S. Constitution. Right, they're going to go through that route, okay, and do their little parades, their little riots, peaceful protests. But it's only going to be peaceful for a certain amount of time, right? It's only going to be a peaceful until some nut job out there shoots somebody, and then they send in the big boy governmental forces, the NATO, the EU, okay, the military. So there's going to be a time where people are going to be plotting sedition, right? It's gonna be because of things like this, right? I mean, our president just putting us in a worse predicament, right? All these die-hard Trump fans that a year ago were talking about Trump 2024, MAGA, make America great again. All those people are realizing that this guy is not doing shit that he talked about, right? All he is doing is inciting the war over there in the east with Israel, okay, Iran, okay, even more, and making the average American's life more difficult. So that right there, is going to cause some problems. But it says, "They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." right? So they're not going to care about who the president is, who the senator is, who's the authority figure. Nobody's going to care because it's going to be a survive by yourself type society. It's going to be survival of the fittest. Do what you got to do to get by. Right? Literally like these purge movies, these apocalyptic movies, that's exactly how it's going to be. Right? People look at that, okay, they laugh, they think it's entertaining, but hey, just wait till that's your life. Right? And that's your reality. That's why it says that in that day, a man shall be like a woman in travail. Right? Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 6. Right? Men are going to be out here like pregnant women, all emotional, down and out, in that fetal position, just completely through, because they ain't got, the knowledge and understanding of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. So let's click on this article right here. U.S. ready to impose massive tariffs on China, right? Because Trump hit China with a 34% tax. The Chinese are like, you know what? Hey, you know, uh, let me just read the article. Tariffs on China set to rise to at least 104% on Wednesday. So China was already set to see tariffs increase by 34% on Wednesday as part of Trump's reciprocal tariffs package, but the president tacked on another 50% after Beijing didn't back off on its promise to impose 34% retaliatory tariffs on used goods by noon Tuesday, adding an additional 84% in duties. Earlier Tuesday, China's Commerce Ministry said it firmly opposes the additional 50% on Chinese imports, calling it a mistake upon a mistake. The ministry vowed to escalate its retaliation on U.S. exports. Right, so hey, China ain't backing down. That's hey, they're standing. Okay, if the U.S. puts tariffs, China's gonna put more tariffs. Okay, and ultimately, it's gonna lead in two things: hyperinflation, or they end up coming to an agreement. It says, U.S. stocks soared Tuesday morning, began moving lower. Where's the right? So, hey, since China is not backing down, Trump said, "Hey, we gonna rise that to at least 104% on Wednesday." Right? So he's gonna turn it even more. He's gonna turn up the notch even more. Right? Look at this right now. The fear and greed index. Extreme fear is driving the U.S. market. Right? And when fear is in the air, that's when people are emotional. People make emotional decisions, not logical. Right? There is a saying by, I think it was one of those Rockefellers, how when there's blood on the streets, that's when it's time to buy. Going into when people are out here struggling, right? Um, the opportunities, warlike conditions, that's when the rich make a real fat buck because they get everything while it's cheap. So, while all this happening, market's dumping. I bet this guy, Donald J. Trump, these Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett was said to have sold all his stocks or majority of his stocks and is sitting on a fuck ton of cash right now. Right? Why was that? Because they all know the plan at the end of the day. Right? They all have that insider information about when they're gonna tank this market and when to get the best entries. So it all lines up once you see what's really happening. But let's get a couple scriptures. Let's go to Revelation chapter 18. Give me a second. So Revelation chapter 18 and verse um 2, it says, "And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird." Right, going into how this place is just completely wicked. Right, this is the most wicked empire that the world has ever seen. It says, "For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies." Right, the nations drinking of the wine of Babylon. The wine is going into philosophy. Right, so the nations following the American philosophy, which is Westernism. American, them being Americanized, being Westernized. ultimately wickednessized. And it says, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And that's the key point, right? Is that the merchants of the earth, right? The other nations that became rich by the way of America. And the way why, or the way they do it is they make their products over there, in China for $1 they can make a Nike shoe. And they come over here and sell it for $200. That's how they're becoming rich. Okay, and when America messes with that money, hey, that's when you see things like this. Okay, let me read what it says. It says President Donald Trump claimed his global tariff policy is a war with the world before backpedaling and saying that it is not a war at all, citing the countries that are sending world leaders to the U.S. to negotiate. Right, and that right there is Trump, being double-minded, right? And the scriptures say that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, right? So, hey, this guy Trump is a real, he's a real wild card. Okay, he'll step out of the script, at times and just say whatever the fuck he wants to say. But I'm gonna get to this point after I hit the first point. It says, I do think that the war with the world, which is not a war at all because they're all coming here. Japan is coming here as we speak. They're the flame flying, lots of them, all tough negotiators. Jumping down here, it says Trump added later that countries are calling him up and kissing my ass to try and make a trade deal. They're dying to make a deal, Trump said, essentially saying that foreign leaders are groveling to avoid the tariffs. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything, sir. Right, that's the key point I wanted to bring up. Right, is that these other nations know that America is the big honeypot. America is the ATM machine, right? As it says right here in Revelation chapter 18 and verse 3. The merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, right? Because this is a society of more, 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 right? Bigger burger, right? Hey, the burgers used to be tiny, right? It used to be normal size. And what came out? I think it was McDonald's that said the extra size or something like that. Extra large burger. Abundance of delicacies. More cars, more houses, new iPhone every single year. More, more, more. And every single time more is pushed, hey, these nations are making a quick buck. Right? So, of course, these nations are coming, hey, kissing his ass because they want to keep making that money. But one thing he said that was relevant is he says that this is a war with the world. And that's exactly true. Okay? America is at war with the entire world. Okay? And the entire world is going to turn on this place and shoot missiles over here. If you don't believe me, Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 9. It says, For lo, I'll raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country. And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man, and none shall return in vain. Right, so, hey, the Lord is going to have an assembly of great nations. Right, that word assembly, let's see what it says in the Hebrew. A company, a congregation, assembly for evil counsel, war or invasion, religious purposes, right? And this is really, the definition. They're going to come over here, for war, okay, to destroy this place. Okay, and that main congregation is going to be Russia, Iran, okay, Lebanon, China, North Korea, all the eastern countries are going to be the ones that are at the forefront of destroying America. But it says, They shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken, and their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. Right? And the arrows are symbolic for those nuclear missiles. Right? They're going to shoot them from over there, from thence, and they're going to be perfect. Okay? None are going to return in vain. Every single missile is going to hit its target. So, when Trump said, hey, we're at war with the world, it's exactly true. Okay, and hey, this boat is going to go down on fire. Okay, I think that's the saying. This boat is going to go down on fire. But let's get one more scripture. Actually, going with what I just said, Revelation chapter 18 and verse 17. For in 1 hour, okay, this place is going to go down in 1 hour. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood far off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea, by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Right, so hey, all the people that survive over there in the east, okay, they're gonna be over here like, damn, America really just got bombed. Damn, we got rich off America by the reason of her costliness. Let's see that word costliness and what it means. Preciousness, costliness, an abundance of costly things, metaphorically worth excellence. Right, so hey, over here in America, hey, everything's expensive. So they make it cheap over there, they sell it over here expensive. Now they're rich. Easy, easy formula. But with all that, what all this tariff is leading to, like I said, hyperinflation. Okay, things are going to get rough. And one of the prophecies, is that famine. So the third seal famine. And I'm going to actually read this in the New Living Testament just because it gives an accurate translation. It says in Revelation chapter 6 and verse 5, it says, when the Lamb broke the third seal, I heard the third living being say, come. I looked up and saw a black horse, and its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice from among the four living beings say, a loaf of wheat bread or 3 loaves of barley will cost a day's pay, and don't waste the olive oil and wine. Okay, and that's putting it in perspective how difficult life is going to get. An entire day of working is only going to be able to get you a loaf of bread. Okay, imagine that, a loaf of bread. Okay, for an 8-hour, construction job in the heat, a loaf of bread. That's why there's going to be mass insurrections, uproars of the people. Okay, complete a war. Because the living conditions are going to be unbearable for the average American. And so be it. Okay, the faster all this happens, the faster Yahweh Hashem Yahushai establishes the kingdom of heaven. And one thing I will say is that the elect will be taken care of in that day. Okay, you always got to remember that, is that the elect will be taken care of in that day. Let's get that in Isaiah chapter 60. Isaiah chapter 65 and verse 13. Therefore thus saith Yahweh, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. Behold, my servant shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. Okay, his servants are going to eat, drink, rejoice, and sing, because we're going to be covered in everything. So, hey, there's a nice little penny, for doing this work. And at the end of the day, it's all going to pay off. So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully this is edifying. With down to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom, Tikilek, Shalom.